Welcome to the latest installment of Brand of Brothers. I'm Doug.
And I'm Johnny. Today we're continuing our conversation about the Higgins-Berger scale of AI ethics. Today we're talking about data usage and privacy.
All right, let's get to it.
And we're back. So, Doug, last time we talked about transparency.
Yes, we've spoken about transparency.
Prior to that, we talked about
Potential
for harm. Right. So the Higgins-Berger scale of generative AI ethics, we've been talking about that for a few episodes.
Three shows so far. So this is our fourth.
Yes. And today we're talking about data usage and privacy.
Yes.
This is a little bit ahead of where things, like, before you get to transparency, before you even get to use a LLM, it has to be trained on some data, and that it has to get that data from somewhere. So my first question for you is, as a creator, when you share something on the internet or wherever, what are you sharing?
So that is a fascinating question because it depends on context, right? So there are times where I am sharing what I think is an image. There are times where I think what I'm sharing is a status update. But what I'm actually sharing are basically ones and zeros, right? I am sharing data. So the real question becomes, who owns that data at any given particular point in time? And so that's part of privacy, but that's also where provenance comes into play. And so those two pieces together kind of are the crux of what we're discussing today. So when it comes to LLMs and training models, the complication that we're facing is the prevalence of how much people are utilizing platforms like OpenAI, specifically ChatGPT, to generate content, to generate whether it's verbal or visual, right? And so that's really our key focus is on content generation. When you're generating content through OpenAI, again, ChatGPT, and really any of these others, right? Claude, Perplexity, you name it. These are not closed environments. These are very much open environments. So not only is there a privacy concern about what content you're reeling in, but also what content you're proliferating.
So, but I'm talking about from a creator's perspective. Are you, when you publish something, and let's say you publish it on X or Facebook, something public.
X, is that like Twitter?
Yes.
You mean Threads?
Threads, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Blue Sky.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Mastodon. So are you, obviously you're doing that, if you, assuming you're doing it with your settings to public, there's an assumption that you're giving permission for other people to read it. But are you giving permission for AI LLMs to train on that?
Probably. So we know that Meta has their own AI platform, and probably by utilizing the platform, I am giving them permission to do whatever they wish with what I upload. Does it mean that I'm relinquishing my copyright? No, but it does mean that I'm relinquishing the license to utilize it however they wish to utilize it. We know that the same is true for X, right? They have Grok. So generally all of these platforms have some sort of AI baked into it that there's no doubt in my mind, I haven't researched this, but there's no doubt in my mind that somewhere in their terms, you have to opt out of having your data being mined for their AI.
As a matter of fact, I think, most recently there was some news, because I think it was Instagram, had enabled a new feature, where they could you had to opt out in order to stop them from training on anything that you upload to Instagram. And there was a lot of pushback. And I think I just read that this week, within the last week or so, they reversed that.
Yeah.
And so you're not automatically opted in. But I guess this is where the crux is your when you upload something, your content, is it, how can that be used? And is there assumption that if you publish a book, um, does that mean that an AI can train on your book or on your artwork or on your music?
So it really depends on how you put out that information. So if you decide that you're going to voluntarily upload the content to a platform that basically you're agreeing by utilizing the platform to their terms, and you're agreeing to hand over the keys to your car.
Everybody reads those terms, right?
Oh, completely, right? Not only do I read them word for word, I also have my team of attorneys read them,
Yeah.
and, they're still supposed to get back to me on
It
some
it
of these
it
details.
seems like every few months,
That's not true.
somebody actually does read the terms, and then there's a little bit of a viral post about that everybody gets worried that now they're stealing all of your data. And there's some language that is in all of these platforms, especially the social media ones anyway, that protects them so they can actually, if you post something, they want the permission to be able to repost it because that's how social media works, right?
Right,
They
yeah.
want to put it in other people's feeds and
The
stuff like
key
that.
the key here in all of it is indemnification. So when you as a creator are leveraging an LLM to create something, you are opening yourself up to risk, right? So when it comes to our ethics scale, it it's super complicated and we try to make it a little less murky even when you're using Firefly, right? So Adobe Firefly is, for all intents and purposes, the safest visual creation LLM that designers have access to because I see you making a face. Did you want to jump in?
Well, no, what makes it how do you define that it is
Yes, the ethically sourced, right?
yes, yeah.
So that's really what it comes down to is ethically sourced material.
That's what we're
Uh,
getting to, right? So we've been talking about creators uploading their content, and there's risk on that side, but on the other side, using the tools,
yeah,
now you're using the potentially the intellectual power everything that creators have
yeah.
created, the history of mankind, and building something new.
So to a limited extent, that could be true if you're using a more open space like ChatGPT. However, when you're using Adobe Firefly, the training data is more confined. So
How so?
they are using images and graphics and designs that they have contracted. So all of the material that is being utilized is licensed material, or they have also not or and they also have open source material that has been input for training data as well. So technically, it's ethically sourced, not ethically dubious.
So they have any of the content was being used by Adobe to build Firefly's LLM, their generative AI. They they either the authors either
Consented. Yep.
actively consented or were compensated
Mhm.
They know that this is being done.
Unless it was put out into open source.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. So I guess that makes uh, that particular model, the Firefly model, it would score better or lower in the
Oh,
in the HBS.
oh, for sure. I mean, this is definitely what I would say lands in the fully compliant category. So that would give you your lowest score. However, there's always a but. And this one is a big but. And I cannot lie. So when it comes to having the generative AI create for you, that you may end up with something that resembles a famous individual, which opens you up to problems, right? Because that's a likeness problem. And then there's also the fact that maybe you're trying to make it create a design and it inadvertently creates an already existing trademark design. Or it gets even crazier because in the world of video editing, you can not only trademark, but you can also patent aspects of effects. And so if you're making AI generated videos and it utilizes an effect that simulates a patented effect, you are opening yourself up to risk, to that legal liability.
I think.
And did I mention that we're not attorneys as much as,
Yeah.
we kind of sound like a law
Well,
firm?
yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about ethics. What is legal versus ethical sometimes overlap, many times overlap.
Mhm.
That's why the laws get created because of ethics usually. But we're definitely focused on the ethical side rather than recommending anything legal.
But can we
But it would.
talk a little bit more about these LLMs and how it is possible to have your own local LLM and to
Sure.
train it, and how there are actually organizations out there for
Sure.
doing this?
Yeah.
Because before we get into the dark and nebulous side of non-consensual or restricted use, I'd like to kind of talk about how there are organizations that are trying to make this as ethically viable as possible, and that includes energy consumption, right? So all of a sudden, the ethical component of environment, which we've obviously moved away from environmental impact, but these LLMs that you can run locally are definitely shifting the conversation in a more favorable direction.
There there are organizations that are both advocating, and there are companies that are building ethically sourced LLMs. The None of these are the mainstream ones that you've heard of, but and I wish I could think of the name of any of them right now. I guess I could pull them up if I wanted to look it up.
Good.
But anybody can look up. It just search for ethically sourced
Oh, we can put it in our
LLMs.
notes.
Yeah, we can add it to the notes. But so and then you can install these models locally,
Mhm.
and there are different degrees of whether or not I don't think there's any of the major LLMs that have clean records of where they not only have consent, they have compensated, they have a clean trail back
Right.
to
Provenance.
yes,
Yes.
and so none of them have that. So that any of the whether you're talking Claude, Perplexity, OpenAI, DeepSeek, any Grok, they all have ethical issues with how their data was sourced. And there are literally hundreds of lawsuits going on right now about this very topic
Wow.
from creators of we're talking writers, we're talking record companies, we're talking anybody who had artists,
Mhm. Yeah.
anyone who has been a creator.
It's limitless. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so and these lawsuits are not going to get settled quickly. Some of them are. Some like Suno has been working out agreements with some of the record companies and changing how they're moving from the old
Well,
data to a new data.
and
And
now there's a new thing where we're gonna be seeing an AI label, and, they're 2 different
on the record,
AI
yeah,
labels.
yeah,
So there's going to be an AI label,
from the RIAA. Yep.
yeah, well, obviously all artists will end up being compliant because the distributors are going to apply these labels.
Sure.
So, like DistroKid, for example, is going to very likely be applying these AI labels based on what their artists are contributing, for example.
Yeah, and how and yeah, whether it was completely AI generated or
Hmm.
partially, there's human in the loop sort of thing.
Hmm.
And that we're seeing some of those aspects of transparency, and that would be much more of
That was two
that was
episodes
2
ago, though.
episodes ago. So go back and watch that one. Um, and like and subscribe. Um, but to get back to where the
You had told me, sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
you had made this analogy about a cake and how there are
Mm.
basically 3 different types of cakes, right? There's the store-bought cake, and then
The restaurant
there's the restaurant cake.
experience, and
It
then there's make your own cake.
Right. So talk to me about what that means and how that's relevant to the conversation.
So the idea goes like this: if you go into a restaurant and you have a piece of cake, you can't take that cake home. You don't know what ingredients are in it, and you can still enjoy it. And so this is like using Chat GPT today. You don't know how it got there. It's still delicious. And so any of your major platforms, OpenAI, Claude, Anthropics, any of those are existing like you're eating your cake at the store. You have no idea what the ingredients are, how it was made, yeah, how good it is for you. But it's still going to be delicious. Now, the second option is a cake that you buy at the store, you bring home. You can still enjoy it, but you still don't know what's in it, right? You still
It's
don't
just
know.
cake
It's
mix.
just yeah, it's just cake mix.
But you get to decorate it, so
Yeah.
what frosting was used.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So take me through this a little bit more, a little deeper. It, Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, and then the third one is you make cake from scratch and you know exactly everything that's in it, and you build your cake, and that would be the highest amount of provenance.
I see. I see. So basically, you've got your OpenAI's ChatGPT type of thing, and that's your restaurant cake.
Yep.
Then you have let's say that you grab your own LLM that you're operating locally,
For example, like
but
Llama, we're talking about like Llama or something you can install on a local machine.
you don't know how it was trained. You just know that you can operate it locally.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, I
Yeah,
see.
which is we haven't really gotten into the privacy side of things, but that is really where you want to be to help maintain a higher level of privacy with the data that you are exposing your own data. So this is do we want to get into privacy yet?
So I don't know how deep we want to get into privacy,
Right.
because it's so incredibly nuanced. So as I see this, in the world of LLMs, we have open source
Mhm.
and we have open weights, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So when it comes to the LLM that you are downloading and installing, but it already has its training infused,
Right.
you're dealing with something that is open source, but it's not open weights, right?
Exactly.
It,
So it basically that comes down to it gives you um, it gives you sort of the finished data model,
Yeah.
but it's still processing locally. It's still generating the text and doing all of the thinking locally.
But we're still kind of in an ethically dubious space, right? Because we
Specifically
don't
because of the data that you don't
yeah,
know
we
where
don't
the
know where the data yeah,
it
okay.
could be
Again, provenance.
yeah, that could be, it could have been trained on copyrighted material.
Right.
And so, um, versus building it from scratch, your own data or ethically sourced data from sources that that there was consent and compensation and all of the things that you need. That would be the only way, and they're really
And that's where you're making the cake entirely yourself.
yeah.
And can
And
we
you
take
can
the
I mean, there are a
analogy
couple companies out there that are offering this,
yeah.
but they're very few and far between and expensive.
But they can also take you to that next level. So we've talked about there's a restaurant bought cake, there's a store bought cake, and then there's the homemade cake. But then you can take that homemade cake to the next level, which is you can now get certification.
Oh, yeah. There's organizations that will certify your cake.
Yes. So, well, much like you can have a certified organic cake, for example, or a
Sure, yeah.
certified gluten-free cake
Yeah.
or
Well,
vegan or whatever, in this instance, it can be certified ethical based on data use and privacy. Now, privacy. Let's go back to privacy. We had
yeah,
briefly touched on privacy.
sure.
Again, don't want to get too deep into it, but obviously, the ethical nature of this homemade LLM becomes thrown into question when you begin importing your content into it. So obviously we're staying local, so you're not really proliferating, but if you're training it with private or sensitive data, then that is going to impact anything else you're doing locally.
Yes, privacy is not so much about secrecy, it's more about the expectation of what is going to where your data is being used.
Right.
And especially when you're in a creative environment like an agency, and you might have access to client information, client missions, and what their goals are, and like all of these can be, competitive secrets
Mhm.
that if they're launching a new brand or whatever, that if you're using a LLM to assist you with let's say even something as simple as a brand evaluation or something like that. um you're presumably going to have to upload some of this client data to get that analysis
Mhm.
back. And so if you're using a public chat, like
Oh, well, that opens you up even more. Yeah.
yeah. So talk about that. Where do you draw? Where are those ethical boundaries that that you that you see as potential pitfalls as an agency owner?
So when it comes to the training data, specifically when you're using something like ChatGPT, ChatGPT says that on the commercial side of things, that the chats are basically closed chats and that you have control over it to a limited extent. Let's be realistic. We don't know how true that statement is. The only way that you can begin to control the sensitive data is by having local LLM instances that are closed per client. And we know that that is cost prohibitive, and
Mhm.
if not completely untenable for most businesses.
Don't I know I haven't really played with it much, but I know that, like, for example, OpenAI has like a business version of OpenAI? Like,
Yeah, we use that.
okay, so that has certain restrictions on
Allegedly.
allegedly, right? So they claim that they're not sharing that data or using training on that data to build future LLMs, right?
Listen, I don't mean to change the subject, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be that 80-20 rule, where minimally there has to be 20% human in the loop involvement. Otherwise, you are still opening up yourself to risk because you've got to make sure that you're not violating someone's copyright.
Right.
And you've got to make sure, especially, that you're not putting your clients at risk, regardless of whatever indemnification, E&O insurance you may have, liability insurance.
Right.
As far as I'm aware, I don't believe any of the liability insurance that Remixed carries covers presenting AI generated work as our own, which is why we don't do it.
Right.
And so when it comes to utilizing AI generated work, there's a degree of transparency and a degree of inclusion, right? And we were talking about this earlier that I could dump 20 years worth of data into a local LLM, but we didn't do every single element that you see in these brochures and in these flyers.
Some of them were licensed by third parties and
Oh,
have limited scope of their
and
license.
it's not just limited to photography, right?
Right.
It's also typography.
Sure,
So
fonts and stuff.
yeah,
She
if
did a great episode about fonts of about a year ago.
nice pitch. And so with regard or plug with regard to typography, you know, you can actually have ChatGPT create something using the font Gotham, but if, for example, you don't have a seat license for that font, it's possible that Jonathan Heffler is going to come knocking on your door. It's not probable, but if you're big enough and you're using their IP and it's not licensed, then you are moving into not just ethical gray areas, but questionable or unclear provenance, right?
It really comes back down to you have to look at it not only, can you legally do something, but should you ethically do
Yeah.
something? So even though you might get away with it, are you just getting away with something?
Listen, I think we have this conversation time and again,
Yeah.
which is you have to have ethical boundaries to care about ethics. So if you don't care, this doesn't matter.
Right.
So this is really the HBS, the Higgins-Berger scale, the utility especially, is meant for people who care. And so the real goal here is that they're not trying to be deceptive. They're not trying to use restricted use material. They're not trying to circumvent the consent of other creators, because that would be the ultimate negative when it comes to data usage, is to just basically say "f you" to other content creators when you yourself are a content creator.
Right. And which is also why this is a framework and a scale. It's not a black and white thing, right? It's we have these number values that we try to assign with the HBS that address the fact that we know that sometimes it is going to be a little gray because you can't know that it was ethically sourced or
And that's when it's important for creators to go, okay, whatever I'm doing with AI it's strictly assistive. You know, it's
Right.
not going to be the penultimate or even the ultimate concept. It'll be, maybe it's something that's used for ideation. Maybe you're synthesizing focus group data, right? So you can do a lot of things that are ethically bound that are not violating people's IP. And that's really what this is all about, is not violating other people's IP.
Yeah, but on the flip side of that, if we require, let's say 5 years from now there are laws in place that require every creator to actively opt in to allow their public creation to be used for training data. Does that stifle innovation? Does that somehow cripple us?
So I don't think it does, because I think everything is built on something before it. And when it comes to innovation, it's still going to be humans that are going to be innovating. We know currently that AI is not really capable of innovating. Again, it's that 80% of the way concept. And AI is only as good as its operator. I've yet to see AI smarter than the operator when the operator has above a 100 IQ, let's say. Obviously, it's possible for you to ask AI something that is akin to a search query, but the response that you get back, if you don't know what you're reading, if you're not intelligent enough about what you're reading, all of a sudden the AI becomes the expert, and that is a slippery slope.
Well, we know that it's wrong at least 20% of the time. At least.
You're being so kind.
Well, speaking of that operator, so our next episode, we're going to be talking about human displacement. Yes. So let's tease that a little bit about what does that mean? The ability, we're seeing a lot of companies announcing layoffs.
Yeah,
blaming AI.
Yeah,
attributing AI.
I mean, that's what this is all about, right? Right. So it is about, how does AI impact human labor?
And I think that's a good place to stop and continue next time. And so make sure that you guys like and subscribe. I love some of the comments we've been getting. I've been seeing a few. Keep them up, and especially you, Calvin. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Brand of Brothers. Big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Remix, the branding agency, along with production assistants from Johnny Diggz, Simon Jacobson, and me, Doug Berger. We can't forget music by PRO. Speaking of not forgetting, remember to do that like and subscribe thing, and find us at brandshowlive.com and follow us on the socials at Brand Show Live.